back so quickly. So
they had a good facilitator. He kept them on
yeah, I'm
point.
assuming there was really good time management. We had like a time Nazi, like that's great. Good job, honey. I'm assuming that you would be the facilitator today. Awesome.
And I think I just broke the other room by asking them an awkward question just as you hit close breakout rooms, and then I bailed. The question I asked them, I'll phrase it to you guys as well, because we're all sitting here. Do you hire for culture fit or do you hire for culture add?
To be honest, I'd say it'd be culture fit. I've never even heard the word culture add. It's just been culture fit. We want people to be compatible with the culture. If we're proud about our culture and we think it's in the right spot, we don't want to disrupt it.
That could be a whole new round table, isn't it?
He just dropped that. He dropped that bomb and walked out.
Yep. I love my mic drop moments.
He was just telling us
the little bomb Michael just throws like in the last 30 seconds. Welcome back, everyone. So hopefully it's never enough time, but at least give you a little bit of a warm up and some food for thought. So let's do a bit of a debrief from each breakout room. And then after that, I'd love to hear from each of you what has been the one thing that you're taking away, one thing that hopefully you learn or reflect, or one insight that you found particularly useful from the conversation today, either from Rob or from your breakout room. But before that, let's go with breakout room number 1. We had Andy, Honey, Ivan, and Ram. Who would like to give us a little bit of a summary of what came up in your conversation, please?
I can, or do you want anyone want to do it?
I think it's you, Honey.
Okay,
yes.
All right. So
go for it.
So look, we talked about a lot of different things. I think particularly we talked about, when the leader of an IT function has a really good team culture and has spent years developing it and nurturing it, it can sometimes, one of the challenges can be that you have great influence on your team and you can sort of design that culture and improve it, but you have to also shield it sometimes from the greater business, because you find that is not congruent with what your culture is or what even the organization stands for. And so, we talked about some examples where with the cross-functional teams working with other departments, where you've got other senior leaders who have influence, sometimes exhibit bad behavior, and it gets tolerated. And so we're talking about how we make sure we intervene or get involved with our team and make sure we don't overlook those bad behaviors and make sure we keep those people to account no matter how senior they are, so we protect our team. We reflected on the story, and I think it's one of my takeaways today, that James talked about, the value of the personal touch, where that manager always asked about him, how he was going, how his family was, and never really started off with asking about the projects. I think that's really powerful, really shows genuine care, and that can go a long way than any other value poster on a wall or any other free lunch on a Friday or whatever else, that you try to do for culture. Somebody else remind me, what else did we talk about? I know there's a couple of other key points. I'm trying to think. Andy, Ivan, anything else that I missed?
Top-down approach.
Top-down approach. So we talked about how you can spend years building up a culture, and sometimes that senior from the CEO, executive leadership team, they haven't really bought into the values and culture of the business, and they again exhibit behaviors contrary to what's espoused, and that can be very corruptive to the team down. And so that culture coming from the top down is very powerful and sends a strong message. And if they don't truly believe it, that can be very hard to shield your team or repel. And I brought up that comment about Porter's, saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast any day. And so that's been around a long time, yet sometimes senior leaders don't buy into it. They're too focused on the bottom line or whatever else is their focus. And I think that's a very toxic behavior to have in a business. So that was what Ivan brought to the table. How's that? I think that captures most of it.
Any points to add, Honey, Ivan, and Andy? Any 2 cents to add?
No, I think Honey did a great job.
Thank you, Ivan.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay, thanks so much, Honey. Room number 2, we had John, Lisa, Michael. Michael doesn't count to me as, we do, but maybe at the end you can share your 2 cents. Michael, Sahil, and Zen. So who would like to give us an initial summary of what came up in the discussion for you guys?
I'll jump in as I did describing. So a couple of the
Thanks,
themes
Sean.
there we just talked about by Hani was same for us, the visible leadership. Michael did sort of say that you just need to be aware of your scope of influence in that cultural journey as well. And I've experienced where the executive team have pointed at everyone and said, you must display this culture, and then don't themselves. And I think as leaders, you underestimate sometimes the power you have and how many people are actually looking at what you do. And I've been picked up a couple of times on behavioral things in the past and can't even remember doing them. But to other people, that's actually significant because they saw me do something in a certain way and that they felt that was a mandate for them to be able to do it. And that can break culture really quickly if you're not careful. I talked about shared purpose. So one of the things I've used successfully is to get everyone pulling in the same direction. So make sure that everybody believes in the vision and the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. And you then get people buying into that whole cultural journey with you. We had a very interesting one about working for large companies. So when we talked about a company of 500,000 people, you managed change across that, which sort of triggered us a little bit more and said, okay, that's a really difficult one. How would you do that? And there's a chance there where the leaders interpret the cultural journey in a different way. So you might find that you've got multiple cultures all looking like they're trying to be the same culture, but actually you end up with multiple cultures because you just can't do that. And Lisa obviously works in a large organization like that, which is a challenge for us as well. And obviously the getting to know people thing doesn't really work. Like you chipped in on that one and said you know of somebody who's sort of got to know 700 people, but 500,000 is probably a bit tricky. And then Zane was talking about the fact that in his role as a product manager, he's just an influencer. He has no direct reports, so he has to behave in a certain way and encourage people to help him to do things. That's probably the same for culture. And then Michael spoke about that as well, that he thinks about going one level up, one level down, and anybody he deals with as being his sphere of influence as far as culture is concerned. And it's probably an easy or a very relevant thing for all of us, is just to understand your sphere of influence as you're doing these things if you're trying to make a change to culture as well. And it needs to be a do rather than a piece of paper. It's not just something that's written down, it's a way of being. And that's probably the most important thing with culture and behaviors. And that's all I can remember, but anyone else could jump in and add to that.
Actually, you've made me think of something, John, when you talked about the purpose or the shared vision. I know in my team, I have my own one-page, just little slogan about my why. And then I have a one-pager for my purpose, which I think is really powerful. And everyone in their team write their own purpose, and it all lines up with their goals and then their KPIs, because you can have a corporate vision and purpose, but how do you make it tangible for the individual is by them writing it in their own words. What's their purpose and how does that contribute to the organizational goal? And we do it every year. We review it every year. So I find
really good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Cascading down the vision. Thank you. Thanks, Hani. So awesome job, everyone. We have a few minutes left, so I will invite you to share your one takeaway as sharp and concise as we can, so we can try to finish it roughly on time. So who would like to go next? To go first, actually.
I'll go first now.
Thanks, Lisa.
I liked the discussion about getting to know something about people personally. I like to do that, and I'm glad others like to do it because it makes me think at least I'm heading in the right direction.
Cool. Maybe start small and then, thanks, Lisa. Who next?
I'm going to build on that. For me, I was going to say the same thing. I think for me, it's, when I first meet my first team member, first one-on-one, the whole half an hour, 45 minutes is just getting to know them. And I don't worry about, work, their capabilities. It's really about them, what they enjoy, what some of their past experiences, but it's really about them as a center. And I use that as an anchor point for each coming back and back. And I think that is really powerful. And I think it's overlooked a lot by leaders who have come through the technical ranks, because their focus has always been technical and output based. And it's like, well, what do I care? And I think even that came out a bit with James's talk. He talked about not wanting to deal with the people stuff. He wants to build stuff. He wants to build technical stuff. but the CIO role is not about that. And so I think that's the abstraction to that role. It is all about the people. It's all about building capability under the team and getting to know them. And I think, yeah, so I second Lisa's points there.
Thanks, honey. And I might actually spoil a little bit. And this is exactly what we're exploring next month with Ram, because Ram has a strong technical background, and the theme for next roundtable is human skills over technical prowess. And Ram has so much authority in that space because that's his natural, being a very technical person, but being exceptional in leading with people, dealing with people, and really building relationship with people. But sorry, putting you on the spot, Ram. But who would like to go next? Your one takeaway from today, one learning, one insight.
If I take it to that opportunity, I think today I also get enlightened by this. What Hani mentioned, that being a CIO, you are most focused on the technical deliveries, strategies, and all that. And when you talk about the cultural, you forget about the people. And today, I think it gave me back again that I will also try to, inbuild that culture in terms of insight, like whether we can talk to all individuals. It's not possible actually practically when you have 70 people or something, you can't go individually, but let me try. Let me try if it's achievable. And it's a good one, actually. Rob started with that. And I like that fact. And I can resonate the same thing with my CEO as well. When you go with some burning situation, but he doesn't talk to you about what's happened there and this and that, and start with your family and how is team doing and all those. And that's I can see it works actually. And I think it's good to try and adopt this thought. That was my takeaway.
Thanks, Sahil.
Matt, I'm happy to go.
Please.
I was gonna say I really was interested in when he mentioned about Google's Aristotle project. So I must say I just Googled it in the background. So I'm gonna read about that. It said identifying the dynamics of effective teams. So it looks interesting. So I'm gonna check that out.
Awesome. Thanks, Ren. I think that's where psychological safety came from, the term psychological safety. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Ren.
I'll jump in actually. So my one's actually Mike's mic drop, which was the cultural add or cultural fit, because obviously I've been arrogant enough to think my cultural pattern was correct. And I think just looking at new people coming into the team to see what they might add to that culture is really, really powerful. So I should certainly be taking that away.
Rock the boat a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
I'll go next. And I like that point that Michael brought up. Do you hire for culture or fit, or culture add or culture fit? I think culture add is really important, because you don't have a great culture. What you want to try and do is you want to bring people in that can add that culture, and that's really important to do. And the other point I wanted to note was, we talk a lot about face-to-face and, talking about your teams and meeting with them and asking them questions. One of the things I've also learned was extending it in emails that you send to people that you never met before in person or never will, and start off by saying, "Hi, how are you? Hope you've had a nice day," or something to that effect. And it changes the tone of your email completely. So something I really have learned in the course of my career.
Thanks, Ivan.
Sure.
I think we have Andy. Who else is left? Andy, have you shared already? I can't recall.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, I think it was really very inspiring today. It's just amplifying humanity, in everything we do. So it was a very inspiring session.
Thank you. Anything in particular, Andy, that kind of hooked you, or?
I think it's just a confluence of passion, people, purpose, and amplifying this human element. Because we're all human at the end of the day, and that's what connects us.
It was a common thread, wasn't it?
Not the technology.
Thank you. And I don't know, Michael, have you shared yours?
I think we need to let Zane go first.
Oh, Zane, that's right, because Zane is sharing all the emojis, and I'm
Throwing
getting,
him in the deep end.
Yes, go Zane.
Anything after? Well, yeah, I totally empathize about nurturing EQ to build trust and culture in teams. And because my role is usually influencing people, so I do my best to read that book that I just shared in the chat. It has some really good tips. It's a classic. It's like a 30-year-old book, but the principle resonates throughout the decades. Yeah. And I just thank you so much just to hear everyone like sharing experiences, how to build better teams, how to be a mindful human being in teams. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Zane. You're most welcome.
I think I'm going to have to go right the way back to the start of this conversation where we were asked, what's our word for the day? And I'm going to go with challenged now, because I've just heard everyone saying, oh, ask people about their personal life. And that challenges me because as Andy said, we're all human. Some people don't want to talk about their personal life. So I'm there thinking it's really important to know who to ask about non-work topics and while you're getting to know them, and who to ask about only work topics while you're getting to know them. That's quite challenging, I find. That comes down to, I think, what Rob said about different personalities and styles of working in a team. And for me, that sort of gets toward the culture add side of things, where you're adding diversity of thought. And that's what makes up your culture. If everyone's going to have the, I want to go and watch the footy on Friday night type view, you're going to have great cultural fit, but you're probably not going to get very good tech support for your customers on a Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah, I must agree, Michael. And this wasn't rehearsed, of course. I've done recently the DISC profiling accreditation, and we talk a lot about what are the needs of different people with different styles, and even to points from Ivan around how to write an email. I often start with, no, hope you're well, but I started to change. If I'm talking to someone who is really direct, of course, when you have never met a person, it's always good to break the ice and be personal. But some people, they really want to be direct. So understanding what their styles and matching, their style. So I think that's important. And that aligns, I guess, with what you're saying as well, Michael. But I'm conscious of time, so I'll have to wrap up. Love you and leave you. Thank you so much for showing up. I hope and trust, this time that you invested, your precious time was valuable. Thanks, Rem, for the clapping. And love to see you sometime soon in a future roundtable. So thanks a lot. Feedback form is on the chat, but if you don't complete, I will chase you anyway the next few days. So have a good evening and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Great
Bye.
session.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.